We are going to talk about why senior level talent isn't getting hired, and why companies are not seeing them. Okay. So if you're now live with me, go ahead and type in the comments where you're coming in from, and type in whether you're a candidate or you're someone on a hiring team right now. Okay. That would be lovely to be able to see. And please feel free to engage in the comments here. So now I'm going to go back through and I'm going to redo this live. Okay. So let me grab some of my notes here that I had. This was absolutely crazy. So I'm going to start with something that I see happen all the time. Okay. Two people, they walk out of the same interview with completely different conclusions. Okay. You've got the candidate over here, and they walk out, they're like, oh my goodness, that went great. I get so many calls, guys, of people saying, that interview just went awesome. I know I got it. I know I got it. I know I got it. Then you have the hiring team over here. Okay. And the hiring team, they're like, I don't know. I mean, I like them, but I'm just not sure. You don't want to be in that not sure thing. Okay. And no one can explain why. Okay. Something just didn't feel right. But then the candidate doesn't get the role. And then the company goes back to the market, because this typically happens in those final rounds. Okay. Those last two final rounds. And this is not, I want to be very clear, this is not a talent problem. Okay. Very clear. It is a clarity problem on both sides, candidate and hiring. And this is why it matters, because at the senior level, hiring decisions are made with incomplete information. And when that happens, guys, people default to what is clear and low risk. I mean, think about the market today. Low risk, right? We want low risk, but we need someone to solve our problems. And that's what I want to break down today, why this happens and exactly what we have to do to fix it. Who's ready? Okay, second time around here. So this session is actually for two groups. We have senior professionals, the senior level professionals who know what they're capable of, but they aren't being seen that way. Okay. And then the second group over here is hiring leaders who are struggling to find that right person, even with them having strong pipelines. Okay. So we want to make sure that we're addressing both of them, because here's the reality. Both sides think the other is the problem. The candidate's going, the company sucks, blah, blah, blah. They're ghosting me, blah, blah, blah. The hiring company is going, oh my goodness, they stink over here. I thought I had a good one. Now they're not responding to my messages, whatever it is. Okay. But both sides are wrong. And what happens is this is a system failure. And I've seen this, before 2021 or before 2020 and years prior to that. It is a systemic problem. Okay. And so it's not an individual failure. We want to take data from those things and look at it as individuals and as hiring leaders and as candidates and say, okay, what did or didn't I do, right? But ultimately, it is a systemic failure. And the cost of that failure is very, very high. We all know this as hiring leaders. We're like, oh my goodness, we just spent all that time, got to the final rounds, and the candidate went with someone else. Candidates going, oh my goodness, I've been out of a job for 3 or 4 or 6 or 10 months. That is costing me every week I'm out of a job. Okay. Depending on the study, guys, 50 to 70% of senior level hires, this is so important, 50 to 70% of senior level hires underperform within 18 months. Ouch. Okay. There's multiple studies on that. I was looking at a lot of them this week, and it's 50 to 70%. Not because they're not capable, okay, but because expectations were not clearly aligned in the first place. I actually had a client who was just hired last year, and then in 5 months was let go because the company didn't have the right expectations. And therefore, that client was failing in the role and didn't understand why, because thought he was doing what was right, but the company didn't have the right expectations. And it goes on both ends, guys, okay? So I'm going to talk about 3 core insights today. The first one, and I want you to write this down if you're taking notes. Make sure I'm checking the comments here. Okay. So the first one is misalignment. Here's what's actually happening. Okay, there's two completely different conversations that are happening in every single hiring process. Okay, so the candidates over here are having this conversation. Here's my experience. Here is my resume. Here's what I've done. Here's my awards. Here's the recommendations. Here's my references. Here's what I've done, right? Here's what people think of me. Companies are having this conversation. Okay, we have this problem. We can't quite tell them exactly what the problem is, but we know inside what this problem is. And can this person here that we're interviewing, or this set of people that we're interviewing here, can they solve the problem? And can they do it without risk? No one wants to be the one who causes more problems because they got hired. Okay, but that's what the company is thinking. And those two conversations, think about it, they are not the same, yet they're in the same process. Kind of a problem, right? Okay, that's the gap. And here's what absolutely frustrates me beyond, but it makes it worse. Back even before 2020, our attention spans were okay, they were still low, but recruiters and hiring managers were spending about 10 to 15 seconds scanning profiles, LinkedIn profiles, resumes, applications. Now it's seconds, okay? Humans, and this is the psychology that I use in my work here, but humans naturally choose certainty over potential. They want to go with the one who feels the most certain, low risk, okay? So if your value, whether as a company or as a candidate, is not immediately clear, you're going to get filtered out immediately. And it's not because you're not capable. It's not because you didn't fit the job description. It's because you were not understood. So if you're a candidate, here's a practical shift, okay? Before any conversation that you have, I want you to ask yourself, what problem does this role actually exist to solve? Think about that. What problem? Not do I meet the requirements, okay? Why do they have this position open? What problem are they having? Okay. Then if you're a hiring leader, before even opening a role, and I love working on this with companies because it helps them to get more clear and they get better candidates as a result. Okay. Before even understand why, first of all, that you have this role, that you want this role open. Okay. Why? What problem do you have that you need to solve? Okay. But ultimately, what does success look like in 6 months in measurable terms? And, this is a huge, huge thing. We don't just hire because we have an org chart position that we need to fill. Okay. We hire because we have a problem. But if we can't clearly define that problem and the solution in measurable results, how are we going to tell that person and hold them accountable as they're going through the hiring process, they're going through when they get hired on? How do they know that they're succeeding? How do we know they're succeeding? Okay. That is incredibly important. I'm a big data person coming from engineering and operations background, huge. If you don't have that, it's a mess. For example, I'm going to use my husband right now. He just went through an M&A with his company, and the new owners do not have any metrics. He has no idea how he is measured in terms of success. He is asked, and they're like, well, sell. What does that mean? He's got someone over here who sells tons and tons. This person over here struggling on his team, him doing I don't know, I'm just trying to make money for my family at this point. That's confusing. And that company is not going to succeed. Those people are going to get burned out and worn out. Okay. So before opening a role, make sure you know what success looks like in 6 months, because guys, experience is interpreted. Problems are actually understood. Everyone has experience. We all know all of our own experience. Us and God are the only two people who know all of our experience, right? Okay. The person on the other side of the table doesn't. They're going to interpret it through their lens. When you can say we have this specific problem, both parties are going to understand the problem, right? Okay. So I want to make this real for a second. If you're a candidate, think about, what do you usually lead with? I love saying this because we go back to the old days of having a catalog for sales. Okay. And this is not just for sales, but when a salesperson would walk into the office, they'd have a catalog. A good salesperson would already have done a little bit of research on the company and say, let's see, they're a tooling manufacturer. Say, hey, you know what? I know you guys use tools like these. We have some really great ones. What products are you working on right now? What are you struggling with? Oh, I think that these 3 would be great ones to start with. Here's your price points, right? A bad salesperson would give them the whole catalog and say, you need to buy, look at all these great things. Oh my goodness, you need all these things. Oh my goodness, yes, you need all these. We're going to replace this and this and this and this and that. And you're like, whoa, you don't even know what my problem is. So if you're a candidate, you have to think about, what are you going to lead with? Lead with those top things. If you're a hiring leader, think about before, right? This is before you even post a role and stuff, okay? What are you trying to avoid? Okay. Notice what happens. Candidates, they lead with their background. Here's all the things. They verbally vomit their background. But if I just get in an interview, I can tell them what I really am about. I'll nail it. I tend to hear that all the time. Hiring leaders, they're filtering for risk. Again, big disconnect. All right. Companies are desperate to solve a problem. Candidates are desperate for a job to be able to provide for their family. Disconnect. Okay. So the next insight is there's this hidden market. And it's hidden, but it's not. It's just going back to the basics. We call it the hidden market out there, and it's really not, just another word that's thrown out there, but you guys know what I mean. Okay. 75 to 80% of senior level roles are filled before they're publicly posted, guys. Why? You're like, why? I can give you a prime example in my own business. I sat down with a C-level executive yesterday morning. I know their company is hiring for 2 roles right now. Within the first 10 minutes of our conversation. Hasn't been posted. No one knows about it. Because I had the conversation, I started building a relationship. I chose to sit down and take time to do so. Okay, so here's how this works. Think about this when you're in a company. You're sitting there, boom, problem emerges. Oh crap. This isn't something that we can fix in a day. This is like a people problem. Okay, leadership. The second thing, leadership starts discussing it. Then you're like, okay, well, can Armando over here solve this? Can Bob? Can Sally? Maybe Sally, I don't know. What do you think? Maybe, well, she's working on this project right now. But Bob over here, he's got some extra time he could probably do, but I don't know, man. He not the best people person, whatever. Okay, right? That conversation is happening. Candidates inside are informally being considered. Then you're like, you know what? Let's just post a job description. When you put that job posting out there, by the time you actually see the job post, as a candidate, you're already behind. You're already behind because they've already been talking about this problem. So the goal isn't to apply faster, okay? And I love this because I have so many clients, and I've got one in particular I'm thinking about right now, that she has tons of tabs open on the company she wants to work at, and she refreshes them at certain hours every day just to see if there's a posting out there that she wants to apply to. And I laugh because it's kind of silly. Okay, why not just reach out directly to the company and figure out what their problem is and approach them with you and your services being the solution? The goal is to enter the conversation earlier. If you're a candidate, you have to talk to insiders. Get off your butt, get on your phone, talk to them, not sending some little message behind the computer. Talk to them, okay? Talk to them, ask about their priorities, position the problems before the roles exist. That's the point. And if you're a hiring leader, the goal is, if you rely on job postings, what you're doing, and this is gonna be a reality check for you, okay? What you're doing is you're selecting from people who are actively looking, but they're not necessarily the best fit. Because job postings do not create clarity. They reflect it. Okay? They reflect it. Make sense? Okay. So I want to show you how this works in real time. Okay. So in real time, what this does, okay, this is a typical job description line. Okay. And I actually pulled this one from a LinkedIn job posting for a company yesterday. We're looking for someone to drive growth and optimize operations. Now, in my mind, I'm thinking, what in the world does that freaking mean? What does that mean? Okay. It sounds so broad. But here's what you want to do is you want to take these job descriptions and something like that, align them and say, what does it mean? Okay, so what this means is that revenue's plateauing, right? Because they have to drive growth. Teams are misaligned. They've got to optimize those operations, and no one is owning outcomes. So as a candidate, instead of saying, I've led teams and I've managed operations, well, congratulations, because I would expect everyone at a senior level role making 150 plus has already in some point led teams and managed operations. I don't want you to say that. I don't want to read that on your resume. I'm going to pass over it. A strong candidate is going to say, I have fixed stalled growth by restructuring X, and that led to a measurable result over here. Same experience, but it's a different interpretation. That first one is going to get ignored. That first one is great when you are an entry level. You've got 2 years of real corporate work under your belt after graduation, and you say, man, you know what? I have led teams and I've managed operations. I'm like, wow, you stepped it up. Like 2 years, man, you stepped it up, right? But if you're 45, 50, 55, and you're saying, I led teams and managed operations, I'm going to be like, okay. The second one's going to have more opportunity to get hired. Okay, because you're saying this is exactly what I've done. So here's how I want you to apply this. Okay, I'll talk to candidates first. I want you, this is before you even start to apply. And if you've already started applying, fine, stop your search. I want you to take every job description that you're looking at, and I want you to rewrite it. And I want you to rewrite it with 3 things in mind. What the problem is at that company, what the metric is to measure success, and what their urgency is. Okay, I want you to write those things out. If you can't figure them out, do some research. If you still can't figure it out, probably shouldn't work at the company because they're not being clear. And that means you're unable to be clear either. Okay, so hiring leaders, what I want you to do is I want you to take and define, you don't even have to write a job description, but I want you to define every single role in these 3 things. What the problem is, what the outcome is, what you expect that outcome to be, and the timeline. How many times do you hear your leaders and your executives say, we just need to hire someone? Okay, when? Let's get them started Q2. That gives you all Q1. Okay, does that mean April 1st? Does that mean May 1st? Does that mean May 31st? Does that mean June 30th? What does that mean? Because when you have a timeline at your company for this process, then you can clearly communicate it to the candidate, and the candidate can be prepared as well. Okay, guys, because clarity, being clear is a competitive advantage. You have to be clear or you're going to lose. And the problem is, I shouldn't say the problem, but the shift doing those 3 things, whether you're on the candidate side or the hiring side, it seems so simple. But I'm going to tell you, for this third insights shifting, most people don't do it. They're just like, oh, I don't have time to do that. I don't have time to write all this stuff out with this job description. I just have to apply. I need a job. I can guarantee you, by just sending out applications and hoping to get interviews and just winging in the interviews, maybe doing a little bit of studying, is not going to get you the job. Which is why we see 50 to 70%, like I said at the beginning, of senior level managers underperform within the first 18 months. Okay, so there's 2 ways you can show up as a candidate. Here's my background. Here's my resume. Hire me, hire me, hire me. Hire me at this price too because of inflation and blah, 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 blah. Please don't say that, by the way. I've had people say that. Don't. That's the first way to show up. The second way is, you know what? I did some research. I talked to some people in your company. I understand what the problem is. And here's how I solve how I solve your problem, how the services I provide solve your problem. Okay. At the senior level, guys, decision makers, they prefer specificity over breadth. Okay. So it is your absolute number one job to make your value obvious. Don't make them think too hard about it. They have so many other things on their plate. Okay. So being a candidate, you want to make sure and I told this to all of my employees at multiple companies I worked at, okay? Because every position in a company matters, even the janitor, even the receptionist, okay? And each one of them has 3 things that they do deliver, okay? And it's very important that you understand in your role how you deliver those things. Everyone's job is tied to revenue growth, efficiency, and risk reduction. So you have to understand as a candidate, if you're applying for a project management role, how are you going to grow revenue? How are you going to help efficiency? And how are you going to reduce risk? You don't want to be the person who costs the company money, adds problems and inefficiency and is inefficient, and increases risk. You don't want that. Okay. Now, if you're a hiring leader, I want you to, as you're going through interviews, as you're going through candidates, as you're having conversations, I want you to do 3 things as well. Okay. I want you to evaluate based on how well the candidate understands a problem. And if they don't understand the problem, you probably were not clear on what the problem was. And if you know you were clear and they still understand the problem, bye. Okay. The second thing is I want you to understand the clarity of the outcome. You need to be very, very specific on the type of outcome you need at the company. And then the third thing is I want you to assign them a risk profile. How risky would they be to hire? Okay, because you and I both know it. Hiring at this level is risk management. And when you're clear, it reduces risk. Okay, so I hope this is clicking for you. And if it is, this is exactly what I break down in my career strategy brief here on Substack here. It's free. This is where I go deeper into how to identify the real problem behind any role, how to position yourself around outcomes, how to navigate the hidden market. And so if you are new, awesome, welcome to my world. I want you to start with the free version because that is where you build the foundation. It has so much, a wealth of information, okay? I publish a new article every week that's free. My notes are on there. There's links where you can go join me on other platforms too, but this is where you start to understand the problem. And if you're ready to actually apply this, there's a paid tier. And that's where I give you the exact frameworks and playbooks. Guys, this is ridiculous. It is freaking $96 a year. Okay. And I'm actually looking at in a couple months here. That will be next month. Today's not March anymore. Next month, I will be increasing the price. Okay. Because I give you the exact frameworks and playbooks. There's not only audio, there's video, and there's very detailed articles. So you not only get the free article, you also get a specific paid article that talks about this stuff, okay? Then if you're hiring, that's where the founding tier is important, okay? It's like $150, okay? And it's built for fixing all of this at the organizational level, okay? Clients who apply this as candidates, they cut their job search time, guys. I pulled this up earlier, 60%. They skip early stage interviews and they get pulled into higher conversations. Companies cut their job search time by 42%. That's insane, guys. Okay. So the link to be able to do this, I will put, I had it pulled up here. I will put it in the comments here on Substack, and then you can go ahead and join in on that. That will be wonderful to see you guys there. And then I wanted to just leave you with this, at the senior level, the best candidates don't win. They don't. The best candidates don't win. The clearest ones do. So when you're being rejected, I want you to stop and think. The reason you're being rejected is not because you're not the best candidate. It's because you're being misinterpreted. Okay. And the moment you fix that, everything's going to change. Absolutely everything. So I hope you liked this, and we will see you next time on our live.